I just want to add one more point on this topic. Most of the individuals who have been involved in e-discovery to this stage have been working under the federal rules and then the recent adapters of state rules. You have a sophisticated group of individuals who are working in e-discovery. You are all part of that group. However, more and more states today are adopting e-discovery rules, which are going to mean that there's going to be more and more requests, and there's going to be a lot less sophisticated individuals who are making those requests. And it's going to be your job to bring sense to the chaos. And this is only going to be a problem that's going to grow. As the data is growing exponentially, this problem will grow exponentially. We're seeing it in the cases we have. So far, we have processed over 70 petabytes of information. That's the equivalent of 3.5 trillion documents. If you put them one by one around the equator, that's 25,000 times around the world. That's ridiculous how much data there is, and it's only going to grow. And with the advent of state and local rules on e-discovery, the problem's going to even be more profound for all of you.
Any additional questions? Yes?
I just have a quick one, and it's actually on a topic that was kind of discussed previously.
I'm sorry, can you speak up a little bit?
I'll speak up. My question is for everyone, but kind of directed to Sue. Just your idea or your procedure concerning the self-targeted collection model. Kind of a two-part question. One is, how do you leverage the potential risk for spoliation claims should they come that the custodians themselves are collecting their own data? And then the second part is, have you ever experienced that? And if so, how have you, God forbid, prepared your own clients who are not a target of the litigation to defend themselves in their collection procedures, being untrained forensic engineers, for example, and and that sort of thing. How would you respond to that? I guess that's very good.
The question is regarding targeted collection, and it's how you defend a spoliation claim.
We gotta get another microphone, huh?
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue when you decide whether or not to go with a targeted collection is whether or not the metadata is important. Now, I know that in this day and age, everybody would like you to believe that metadata is always important. It's the end-all, be-all of electronic discovery. In some cases, they don't give a flying fig about the metadata. They truly don't. All they want is the content of the documents. And so, one time, I'm sorry, started going off in a war story, but I won't do that. We don't have time. I think the big issue is whether or not you want to do a targeted collection, and that is for the attorneys to decide. That is not a question that we should decide, nor the client. The attorneys need to decide whether or not that is the way to go, and whether or not they can defend it if something goes wrong. And so what we do, we have protocols in place. We have our template of instructions for folks that are going to do a targeted collection. We work with the IT department, and we work with whoever the vendor that we choose to ensure that everyone understands the protocols and the instructions. In some cases, in smaller companies, we will literally come on in and sit down with folks and talk with them before we do this. And that's the way we explain, make sure that we've explained, and then we confirm the explanation so that we have documented every step of the way what we have told them, what they are supposed to be doing, and what they will do. And then, at the end of that process, hopefully, again, it's all about defensibility. Have we done what we set out to do, and have we identified the way that we have measured whether or not it was done correctly? Have we ever had a spoliation claim? Not yet. Knock on wood, we have not.
Has anybody?
Has anybody had?
Anybody had one and wanted to?
No, I think it's a fascinating idea. I know a couple of firms have them actually to answer your question, but I'm sure no one in this room. But that being said,
it's a very good point.
I mean, we're leery about it, but it's a great idea if we've done it correctly.
Well, the hazards are real clear with that RICO case against Toyota right now. And if you go and you do some research and you look at the kinds of adverse inferences that are being drawn to companies who have been found to have done things that are somewhat nefarious with their e-discovery practices, and the sanctions that have come, there are significant penalties. So when we communicate those challenges and the procedures, we also have to be very clear in communicating those risks. Because if you don't do that, you're not doing your client a service.
There was one further question in the back.
What if you guys mentioned earlier that moving all the litigation hold materials into one folder on the same server, what if you have a court order specifying that the metadata, such as the file location, the last access, that sort of stuff, specific to each file? How would you recommend going about that? Because you can't really move it without altering that part.
The question was regarding the foldering structure and whether that was important, and if we move it to a specific location, how do you handle that?
As far as I'm concerned, the easy answer is educate the court. Go back to the court and tell the court exactly what it is that you're doing, how you're doing, and why you're doing. Let the other side know that. Don't assume that they know it. Just make sure that you document the heck out of everything. And see if you can get an agreement first with the other side, and then go to the court and advise the court.
And let's talk about the magic words in that question. Court order. So if a court tells you you have to do things a certain way, then you have to do things a certain way. And targeted collection may be out of the question. That's the kind of risk that you do not want to take. And I'm sure the attorney would tell you, here's what we've agreed to in the 26th conference, if you've done, if you've gone ahead with that. But whenever there is a court order, if a court has ordered anything in connection with e-discovery, whether it be via stipulation of the parties or anything, you have to be very careful. Again, it's all about the defensibility. And if I had a targeted collection with a court order telling me I had to maintain the path of those original files, there's absolutely no way I'd be moving them around on a server.
Any other questions? That concludes our panel. Thank you very much, and next up is lunch.
That was a great panel and great questions. I would encourage everybody to walk up to 2 or 3 people during lunch you don't know and introduce yourself. I think a big opportunity here is to really get to know other people, especially in the lit support world. Oftentimes we're producing to each other, right? So if I can develop a relationship with somebody at another firm and they know who I am, when I pick up the phone and call and say, hey, this isn't loading into my system, or we're having issues, it really pays off to build those relationships. So is lunch out there? Lunch is outside, so please grab it and network a little bit.